don't see pain and disease as a message from the body. We see it as an enemy to shut down, to fight with, right? It's the masking and the pretense of, I need to be normal. I need to be okay. I need to be how you want me to be. I don't like my feelings. I don't know how to deal with them. So let's shut them up. Why do I love this? I love this because my soul is in alignment to this. That's why I love it. And that is what the soul wants you to do. It wants you essentially to align with what you came here to do, and you have to love it.
Beautiful soul, welcome back to the Abundance Club podcast. Thank you for tuning in today. I have a really fabulous episode, a fabulous guest in the club. I am joined by Inna Segal, who is a world-renowned healer and best-selling author of the amazing book, The Secret Language of Your Body, which has sold millions. It has impacted millions of people around the world, including myself. And in this episode, it really brings you back into the wisdom of your body, into recognition and appreciation of that wisdom. Inna was a teacher who really influenced my journey into understanding the way that our body is communicating with us and the deeper emotional patterns and consciousness that lies beneath the physicality, right? The physicality is often a reflection of what's happening subconsciously and what's happening energetically. And so in this episode, we dive into how your body's constantly communicating with you, why so many people actually feel really disconnected from their body, don't trust their body. We look at the hidden patterns behind illness and scarcity and emotional blocks, and how to really start listening and working with your body. And if there's ever a time in our lives when this feels more important than ever, to come back to your own truth and your inner authority, it is now, my friends. We even dive into soul, which I love how your soul is guiding you always if you're willing to listen. So I'm really excited to introduce this guest. Before we do, though, I just want to mention that the doors have opened to my new program called Soul Power. I'm so excited about this, you guys. We have 3 months together. This is like a mastermind. It's a group mentorship, my deepest one yet. I am there with you every week for 12 weeks. So we really do the work. We move beyond understanding into embodying, like walking as the you, the version of you who already holds everything that you desire. Right? This is where you learn to trust your body, to clear the subconscious patterns that have been holding you back once and for all, to feel really safe in your expansion. This is high level work, and I am calling in women that just know in their soul that they're here for more and they're ready to prepare themselves for that by living as her now. When you tap into your soul power, you tap into the limitless realm, the realm of infinite possibility. So I am so excited to take these women through it, because your next level is not created by forcing. We know that. It is created and it is received through who you become. You can find all the details in the show notes. I would love to have you inside. Right now, there is a awesome early bird special and a fast action bonus where you get a free one-to-one session with me when you book in. All right, beautiful souls. Thank you for being here. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this episode, give us a review. I love you for it. Thanks so much. Inna, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Abundance Club. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
I want to start with, I actually first discovered your work many years ago. Now, I think I must have been in my 20s, perhaps, through your book, The Secret Language of Your Body. And I believe it's now, sold over 1 million copies, which is amazing. Congratulations with that. I felt like it was one of the first books that I personally came across that really connected the physical piece, or the physical illness and imbalances, with the deeper energetic and emotional patterns behind it. And I think that it was probably like a doorway opener for so many people into understanding that the body isn't just something that's separate from our experience, but actually holding it and transmuting it. So I'm curious to begin with how you came to this work, to discovering this understanding of human consciousness and the connection between illness and the body. And as you've seen your work and this book reach so many people, what this journey has taught you about healing and about consciousness and what's actually possible for us as human beings on this healing journey.
So I got onto this journey, I think, in a similar way that most people would if they were to awaken their intuitive abilities. And for me, it was being sick and just being in pain in childhood, during my teenage years, into turning 20. I had digestive issues, I had anxiety, I had psoriasis. But more than anything, I had back pain that was constant. And essentially, there was a moment in my life, and I won't go into the details of it because I've written about it in my book and so many articles, and it's on so many podcasts, and I just want to get into the other stuff. But essentially, I was able to heal myself through tuning into my body. And in that experience, I discovered that the body had this language and that it was constantly communicating with us. Most of us are aware of this in terms of pain, right, and sensations inside the body. But for me, it was more than that, because I opened up this capacity to be aware of the subtle bodies, like the astral body, which is what people call the aura. So when they say, oh, let's get a photo of the aura and all the colors in the aura, I see that as the astral body. And that tells me about the belief systems and the emotions that a person has. And then I'm also aware of a subtle body called the etheric body. And this tells me about the health issues that someone has and to what degree they have it and where they started, and how to create a map essentially that allows me to understand how to help that person. And that map goes back to the beginning of where the seeds were planted for that condition. And so that was the awakening of my intuition, and took many years to refine and to understand and to, I guess, to work with in a way that was very effective. And then I wrote the book, The Secret Language of Your Body. And it was really based on the fact that I recognized that there was wisdom in each part of the body, and that we as a community and a society have all of these connections, where on one hand, we're so uniquely individual, and on the other hand, we are so connected with each other. And so I started looking at the things that connect us, the fact that our hearts are all about intimacy and relationships, and that throughout our lives, we all have challenges to different degrees with people that we're intimate with. And so because of that part of our body, the heart, either becomes strengthened or weakened, or it grows into this wisdom that allows us to discern what is good for us and what's not. So you mentioned the throat before we started communicating, right? Sorry, before we started the podcast. And the throat is all about communication. And all of these things are obvious. Eyes are about seeing, ears are about hearing. And so when you go deeper into it and you start to understand the body as this map that actually shows us what's healthy for us and what's not healthy for us, right? When we really gain that insight and that wisdom, we start to work with the body instead of against it. And I should say, when I say the body, I also include the energy bodies that I mentioned into this. So I learned a lot. It's been a huge, huge journey of learning.
Mhm. And that was how many years ago was it that you wrote that book?
When I actually wrote it, yeah, it was 20 years ago when I was
Mm,
writing it, when it
mm,
came out. I think it was the year after.
yeah.
But yeah, I wrote it when I was 26.
Wow. So I must have been around a similar age when I got it, when I got it. And it almost was like, and your work was similar to kind of Louise Hay's, right? And it almost felt like it was this Bible. And whenever I would get something, I'm like, what is the emotion behind it? Because I've always understood. I mean, essentially, everything here makes sense when we understand it on a quantum perspective, and we understand it that we are energy. So I truly believe that it impacts us in our, in the subtle realm before the grow, before in the more of the dense physical, as we know our physical body. You speak about the body holding these deeper patterns. So whether it's emotional or ancestral, or a lot of these even unconscious soul agreements that we make. And I feel like, this information has been available to us for so long about our body holding wisdom and coming back into befriending our body and communicating with our body. And yet, I do think that so many people still feel so disconnected from their bodies and even resistant to what's going on externally. And maybe because we have outsourced a lot of power and authority to the medical systems or to people outside of us, instead of listening. And there's a lot of behaviors around numbing or distracting ourselves, or pushing things down. So how can we begin to develop a more conscious relationship and work with our body? And why do you think there's still so much resistance to actually feeling and being present with what's there, and letting your body communicate it in a way that you can, befriend your body, rather than going straight into there's something wrong with me that I need to fix with something that's outside of me?
I think that it comes from childhood, essentially. It comes from the fact that, well, let me say it in a metaphoric way. So when we are born, I believe personally that we have access to our feelings, to our sensations, to different colors. We're curious, we're exploring, right? We're wanting to learn and grow. And if something hurts, we scream. If something is not right, we let the people around us know. Now, because human beings are so uncomfortable, have become so uncomfortable with, with their own sensations and feelings,
Mm,
and because we have a capacity to change them instantaneously almost, where many, many years ago, when you're talking about ancient wisdom, we didn't have that capacity. You couldn't just pop a pill, right? You couldn't just turn your TV on. You couldn't just go shopping.
mm,
Like, you had to be with what was going on, and we had a society of healers, shamans, different types of, you know, natural medicines that worked with our own bodies and with the rhythms of our lives and with what was going on. So now we live in this society where, metaphorically speaking, we are all still born into a castle, like an internal castle where we can express all different aspects of ourselves. But as we grow, and this starts from so early on, right? Where even during birth, so many women are not having natural births anymore because it's inconvenient. For the doctor, it's inconvenient for the mother, or we just want to be drugged up. We don't want to feel what the pain or the
Yeah.
rhythm of it. So we start very early on. And if the child experiences this numbing medication from birth, then they are so much more likely to become an addict, one, and two, numb feelings, because
Mm.
that's what happened as their very first experience. And then as we, grow, we don't see pain and disease as a message from the body. We see it as an enemy to shut down,
Mm.
to fight with, right? To numb. So we don't see natural things like a fever, for an instance, as something that is showing us that our immune system is actually working, that it's healthy. We go, no, we're going to shut this down.
Mm.
The same with all the emotions that we have as we are growing. We're constantly hearing, don't cry, don't get angry, don't shout, don't raise your voice, don't be too happy, don't laugh too much. If you laugh too much, something bad might happen. It's just constant.
Mm.
And so, because we are so good and so teachable as children in terms of wanting to mirror and adjust and be loved, right? And be liked, we start to shut down ourselves and those rooms in the house. And it's almost like you see children who are 3 and 4 and 5, and they're so happy usually. And
Mm.
then you see teenagers who are 15 and 16, and how many of them are depressed now.
Yeah.
So from that age, of 3, 4, 5 to that 10-year period to 15, 16, there is such a huge difference to how we as human beings are allowing ourselves to express ourselves. So then we have this thing in the Western world where we are taught to fake it till you make it. Just fake it until it becomes a part of you, rather than seeing every emotion, including the ones that are uncomfortable to us, as a way to gain wisdom, as a way to grow, as a way to learn something. And so, I hear this all the time in the spiritual world about spiritual bypassing, but essentially, unless you are connecting and listening to your body and your emotions and understanding it, you are bypassing whichever way you're doing it. And so, whilst it's already in our culture and it's in our language and it's so obvious, we have grown up in a society of be fake and be nice in order
Mm.
to please others, rather than be you and be real. And that's what it is.
Yeah, it's almost like this programming of like it's not safe for me to be me. And I relate to so much of what you've said, like we don't want to be with discomfort. We see discomfort as something that's bad that we need to avoid, whether that's the physical discomfort, whether that's just the discomfort about moving forward in your life, about showing up in a new way, about speaking your truth, about disrupting, patterns that are in your family. And I can remember, I was pregnant with twins and going for a natural birth, and I can remember being in the doctor's office because I wanted to have a natural birth and them saying, we need to try and control this. And I said to them, but you can't control this. And the best chance that I've got is being able to trust my body, but I need to trust it without all of the medication and without all that. And that was just wisdom that I knew was coming through me. And we're taught that pain is bad, but in that instance, was it painful having a natural labor? Absolutely. But that pain was a doorway. And I remember this point of being in labor going, the only way is through it. I can't avoid this. I can't numb it. I'm going to try and escape it and get out of my body like we try to do in labor. It's like I had this moment and it was like my consciousness saying to me, you've got to go into it. You've got to go through it. Like you said with the fever, like we've got to be able to go through it and know that's a portal and that we're transmuting something and we're going to come out on the other side. So, and the other thing about this is because I've got teenage kids as well, is that the numbing tools, we've got access to more numbing tools probably than we have before with social media and with phones and with AI, like the things that take us outside of ourselves. So how do we begin? Let's say, because yeah, I spoke about my throat before we came on, before we went live. I've had this kind of sickness for the last couple of weeks, and there's just this throat and cough thing hanging on, and I've got my tea, and I said to Inna, like, I hope I don't cough because it's there, and I'm just aware of that, but I'm also aware that there's something here. How do we begin? If you feel like there is something that you've had for a while, right? Whether it's acute or whether this is something like a digestive pattern, and you have a sense that maybe there is a message here, or because there always is, I guess. How do you suggest that people start to come into communion and work with their body to either try and uncover what is the message here? How can I let this go? How can I clear it or transmute it? Like, how do you suggest people start to do that if they are experiencing physical pain or discomfort?
Well, we can try it with you. So I would say, I mean, essentially, I like to look at every person from that perspective of how sensitized are you? How awakened are you to the messages from your body?
Mm.
And so I would probably work slightly differently from someone who has had a lot of experience in self connection to somebody who's completely new.
Mm.
So with somebody who's new, we'd really work on sensitizing their nervous system. So we might start with moving their body and shaking it and just scanning it and going, can you tell the difference when we move the body and when the body is stationary? Can you start to create an internal awareness of different sensations inside of you, because most people are not aware of that. They're just so outside of themselves. They're just running and surviving and struggling. So we need to sensitize to to gain some wisdom. And once we've done that, then I would say, all right, Amy, let's work on the throat. Let's bring your hands very gently towards your throat, and if you can just close your eyes and take some slow, deep breaths in and out, and tell me about the sensations that you are experiencing inside your throat. What are they? If you could describe them.
I would say it's like a scratchy feeling, like as if it's a little bit like sandpaper, that kind of scratchy,
Okay.
bit
So
abrasive.
if this scratchy feeling had a color, what would it be?
Well, all I'm seeing now is brown, probably because I had that sandpaper in there, but it was like a beige brown color.
Okay. And if there was a symbol or a shape that this part of your body could show you, what would it be?
I'm seeing it as like a spiral, almost like a portal.
Okay. And if there was a thought or a belief connected to it, what would it be?
The belief was I need to try harder.
Okay. And if there was a feeling that was connected to it, what would it be?
Like I'm getting struggle.
Mm. So let's put it all together. So there is a part of
Really
you
clear, actually.
that, right, that feels like I've got to struggle, and maybe there's a portal, and no matter how much I try, I still have to do more. And, and it's never ending. And maybe I'm exhausted from doing that.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe I keep feeling like I'm going round and round in circles with it. Does that make sense?
Really does. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I felt a little shift there just within that. So that's really cool. And thank you for that. So it's really, it's meeting yourself, opening up that doorway and that conversation and it's like when we can do that, the body can unlock and release, and it automatically, I felt like this kind of this spaciousness, this opening up. I want to talk about abundance because this is the Abundance Club, and you speak about abundance being shaped far beyond mindset. Through our early programming, through ancestral patterns, through soul agreements. So, how does our body actually begin to communicate with us when we're out of alignment with abundance? And when we're maybe in more of that, scarcity? What are some of the most common emotional or energetic patterns you see that indicate scarcity is being held in the body?
There's so many, actually. On the physiological level, issues with the lower back is one of the easiest ones to recognize, because there's a sense of being held back, often around stuff to do with childhood and family. And there's also this sense of fear and struggle in terms of moving forward. I often see knees and feet also to do with just taking steps forward into the type of career that we would love, into the type of experience that would be healthier, into that sense of knowingness that we are supported. So I want to say most people feel alone, isolated, unsupported. They have very old beliefs from childhood or from teenage years that they have to work really hard and struggle and often do the things that they don't want to do. They're often told that the way to make money is being a little bit ruthless and at times dishonest, and that's okay as long as you look after yourself. It's okay to, if you go into careers that are, finance oriented, then you're succeeding. But it's also okay to treat people badly and to be ruthless with it. So we have a lot of belief systems, and there's also a lot of limitations. So, I mean, look at the schooling system, right? They literally put your marks down if you do anything creative, and they put your marks up if you do anything science based or mathematical. So the system tells you that this is success, and people who have brains and minds that are geared towards IT, towards math, towards science are successful in life. And people who are creative, well, they're not really successful, and creativity is useless. And so at one point, and I think this is happening a lot more now than it used to, people wake up and they go, you know what, this is what society and my family thinks. What do I think? What do I believe? What do I want to do? And at that point, they have to face those internal blocks and fears that they've carried, and they may not even consciously know they've carried, that say, well, you're not good enough. You didn't follow, what I told you to follow. You're not going to succeed. It's too hard. It's too this. And what most people do, or a lot of people, I should say, is that they stop before they take enough steps forward, because again, they've been taught to plan everything and to try and figure it all out before they start. And I always say to my students, you don't know what you don't know. So unless you start with your heart and you have a really strong why, like, why am I going to do this? And when it gets tough, because it always does, because again, we have this myth that if I do what I want to do, it's going to be easy. And this is another thing that stumps a lot of people, because they go, it's not easy. That's the message to stop. And it's like, no, no, no. You learn through challenges and struggles, and life is non-linear. So you need to be adjusting with whatever's going on, and you need to learn how to create internal flexibility. And then you also need to recognize the difference between the voice of the feminine inside of you and the voice of the masculine. And that is a huge, huge area to explore as well.
How do we start to explore that? Well, I'm interested to talk about that, but also if we're aware that we have some unconscious patterns, ancestral patterns and programming that's running in the background. Like maybe we grew up in a family where, that was more of a scarcity mindset, that did talk about money and things like, money is the root of all evil, or money doesn't grow on trees. So a lot of the limiting beliefs around that. And we are really aware that that is the paradigm that we have grown up into. And maybe we're not aware, like maybe there are some more unconscious patterns, as often there are, running in the background. So how do we begin, if we're aware that we've inherited some ancestral patterns or trauma, how do we begin to start to change the script and start to heal? I'm just interested in your perspective on this, how we start to heal some of those patterns that we know we don't want to take with us. We don't want to pass it on to our children. We don't want it holding us back in our own success and abundance. And we're clear on that. What is the work that you do, or that you encourage your students to do, to start to break free with some of those conscious or unconscious patterns?
So I ask people to start in a general way, and then we become quite specific. So I'll start with going, all right, well, let's grab a pen and paper, and I'll give you 3 to 5 minutes, and I just want you to write whatever comes to you in terms of your beliefs around money, abundance, success, anything to do with you deserving or not deserving it. And I let them do that. And then we start to look at those beliefs, that they wrote down. And then we start to ask the questions around, hold on, where did they come from? Were they your beliefs? Where did you hear them? Where did you buy them? How are they impacting you? Where in your body are they impacting you? How much energy do you actually give to these on a daily basis? And then I usually start with teaching them a very simple process around recognizing a specific pattern and then deleting it, like literally deleting it from their mind. And then we actually take some time and we go, okay, so we release it from the mind, but is it stuck in the body? And if it is stuck in the body, where is it? And again, some of the questions that I asked you, Amy, I might ask them, well, how does it feel? What is the sensation? Because we need to get into it and we need to recognize it, and then the difference, right? And so we might also recognize that there is a part of us. Let's say we realized this actually happened when I was 6. Like an example that I can use from one of my prior clients, where when we started doing this type of work, she was about 50 and she was a yoga teacher. And one of her beliefs and the experiences that she had over and over again around these beliefs was that no matter how much money she has, she always spends it or loses it or doesn't, like it's never enough. No matter how much she has, it's never enough. So we wanted to find out where it came from. And the first time I tuned into her, I actually saw a 6-year-old child. And what it looked like was that my client had her hands out, or one of her hands out, and there was money on her hands. And the child would kind of move her hands and take the money and throw it. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Where did this come from? And so I started communicating with this part of her, which, let's call it the inner child archetype. And what she told me was that she really missed her daddy, and she felt like she didn't get the love, the attention, the care that she needed from her father because he was always out making money. And she felt neglected and unloved. So she associated money to something that is negative. That's something you have to get rid of as soon as possible because it means that you're not loved, you're not cared about. And it was a real revelation to her because as a 50-year-old woman, she did not have any awareness of this. And so we started working with this child inside of her and helping this child to nourish and strengthen and to feel safe and not to lead, because that's what people don't realize, is that there are parts of you, these archetypes, that will lead you in your life if you don't become conscious of them, and if you don't consciously empower the wise part of you to lead, right? The older, wiser part of you that has gone through many, many experiences and that knows innately that you are worthy of different experiences and abundance and so on. And so we had to change the dynamics inside of this relationship where the child was leading around money and she had to take that power back and be the one who's leading and let the child know that she was safe to just be and she was going to be loved. So that was this one of these real transformations that was quite deep and very subconscious, but once it became conscious and once she did the work with this child, I remember she called me and she said, I'm redecorating my house. And it was very interesting because I lived in a completely different state. And the first time I went to this lady's house, it was beautiful, but everything was black and white. And I said to her, it would be really nice to bring some color into this and some vitality, some creativity. When I visited her not long after we started doing this work, it was like being in a completely different environment, an environment that was conducive to abundance and that had all these colors and flavors and aliveness in the in the environment. And she also said to me, I'm ready to do this workshop. And within, I don't know, days, she called me and she said, oh my God, this has never happened before, but I sold out. Like the workshop sold out. I can't believe this. And so there was a completely different shift in her energy to where people became so much more attracted to what she was doing. But again, I want to say to people that, we've all heard these stories and how it can be instant, but there's a difference between opening the door and having things shift and then essentially creating a foundation where whatever happens in life, you're able to adjust and you're able to be flexible, right? Because with anything in life, including success, you might be extremely successful this minute, and 3 weeks later you might be feeling something different. And it's that state of internal stability that we need to work on, especially when people have their own businesses, because so many of us have experienced that, the minute there's war anywhere, people get frightened. And you might go, oh my God, what's wrong? What's wrong with my business? Maybe something's wrong with me, as opposed to, well, things go through cycles and through awarenesses, and you need to adjust. You need to adjust things. And that is the biggest insight that I have around success for people, is that if you can adjust internally and create this feeling and a sense of worthiness and abundance internally, then whatever happens externally, you will not be moved by it as much, or broken by it, or hurt by it. You'll just go, okay, this doesn't work at this point. I wonder what does. Let me go and learn.
It's so powerful. I relate to so much of this. And, I think that we're always looking for the quick fix. We're always looking for what's the thing. And I think, it doesn't help when there's so much language around, like, just do this thing, just clear this block. And this is the 10 steps to success. And if you do this, and if you follow this blueprint, and if you do this, and we get so pulled into that, because there's that part of us that's so wanting to achieve that level of success. And what I'm hearing you talk about, a couple of things which I think is so beautiful and profound, is understanding who is leading, who is steering the ship. And I agree, so much of the time it might be our inner child, or our wounded self, or our ego self, or our inner teenager that's been used to leading. And then it's coming back into that recognition of the wise you, the evolved you, your soul self. And what I'm understanding, I think, from what you're saying is, when you establish that or reestablish that and keep coming back to it, and you never leave yourself, then no matter what is occurring or orbiting around you, you have foundation, because you know who you are, and you're home, and you're steady. And I've experienced, in having business over 20 or so years, those seasons where there is so much flow and there is so much abundance. And when you're in it, you think, well, this is just going to keep going. And then you're going to go through something else, because all of this is for you, and all of this is life moving through you and teaching you and helping you to heal another layer and helping you to go to that next level. And it's really humbling to understand that we're in this collaborative relationship with the divine intelligence, and it's not always going to be smooth sailing. However, no matter what seas you are navigating and what turbulence you come up against, the best place that you can be is within yourself, inside yourself, and in the present moment, to be able to steer through and navigate whatever is going on. That's really what I take from what you've shared there, which I think is so powerful. When we talk about the soul, and I love to talk about the soul, and you talk about the soul, how much do you believe that our soul is guiding our life and our life experiences? And from your perspective, how can we begin to build a more conscious and aligned relationship with that part of ourselves so that we're not just living from the surface, we're not living at at the effect of what's going on around us, but truly in connection with that innate guidance that's steering us?
I think that the soul comes in with an agenda. And I have to say, everything that I've learned, and I've spent most of my life learning about it, takes me towards that.
Mm,
And I feel like when you have those moments of deja vu, which most people have had, that is a reminder for you, to pay attention and maybe to adjust something, or maybe it's an awareness of, yes, I am following my soul's purpose. And I think that to to really get clarity on it, you have to slow down and you have to break it down to what it is and what it's about. And I think that most people break it down to a job description, and it might have a part of that, but they don't break it down to the actual understanding of their life, of evolution, of growth. And again, our school system has a lot to do with it, because we're constantly told we only have this one life and that's it, and there's no other experiences, and it doesn't matter how you do or treat people, because that's it, that's one life. And so we, and I hear this from teenagers who are not taught anything spiritual, and they just say, well, life is just about, working and doing stuff, and then you die. And it's just so sad, right? Because that's what they've been brainwashed with, because there is an attack on the soul at the moment in terms of the science, and everything's pushed in terms of this science. But for me, so I believe we have a soul and a spirit, and they're two different things. So the soul comes in with this agenda of, I I need to grow, I need to learn, and it also brings with it, I guess, awarenesses for us. So how do I know that this is part of my soul purpose? Well, I feel it. And so that aspect of the soul's purpose is inside the heart.
mm,
That's the organ, and it's like, and we know that innately. And so from when we are a teenager, we actually, so we go through this 7-year time periods, and in the first 7 years we're in the energy field of our parents or whoever's looking after us. And then from 7 to 14, we start to create a separation, and our subtle body, our etheric body starts to develop, and we start to go, oh,
mhm,
I am like you, I'm not like you, this is how I'm different, and so on. And then from the age of 14 to 21, we start to explore, what is it that I like that is different to other people,
mm,
you know? So I remember when I was growing up, my best friend at the time wanted to be a dentist. And I remember thinking, I literally cannot think of anything worse to do than to spend your whole life looking into people's, mouths, and looking at their teeth. And I remember we had this conversation, and she said to me, "Come on, Ina, a monkey, a monkey can become a dentist." And I was like, "Well, not this monkey." And I remember thinking, I had this moment, if I can share, actually, I had
mm,
this moment where I was around, between 15 and 16, and innately I knew that I am a creative person. I'm not a math or science person. I loved acting, I loved writing, and I was like, that's what I want to do in my life. I want to act and write. And during that time, we usually, in Australia, obviously, we usually have, you know, many people coming into the school and talking about careers. So the more I would say these are the things I want to do, the more I would get shut down and told that you're never going to make any money, you're going to be poor, you're going to struggle, you can't do it. That's not a career, that's a hobby. How many times I can't tell you how many times I heard it's a hobby, it's not a career. So what's the career that you want to do? And so I remember thinking, okay, maybe I'll do advertising or something. And I actually did work experience in an advertising agency. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to do acting. I'm going to shut down that part of me. And for about maybe 9 months or a year, I felt like a zombie, like literally like a zombie. I would come to school in the morning and I just go, oh my God, I just don't feel like myself. And then I thought to myself, fine, I'm just going to do dance classes because my friends live next to this dance class. We can all go and, enjoy it. And maybe this acting bug will leave me. And so I then ended up meeting this woman who was 26 at the time, and she was a doctor, or she was studying to be a doctor, and she gave me a book, and it was called Born to Succeed. And so one day I got home and I was like, I feel like such a zombie. I need a message. Right. And I didn't know that there was no such thing as cards at that time, that you pull. It was just like, I didn't know anything. And I opened this book and I go, okay, God, my soul, whatever exists, give me a message. I want a message. And I'm going to put my finger on whatever the line is and I'm going to follow whatever it says. And I opened my eyes and there was a line and it said, God wants you to do what you want to do. And I remember just sitting with that and going, so my friends, one wants to be a nurse, one wants to be a dentist, one whatever. I don't want to do any of those things. I want to do acting. And they cannot think of anything worse than to be in front of people and to act. Now, what was really interesting was that I did make a decision to go to an acting class, is that I don't know that I would be doing what I'm doing if I didn't go to those acting classes, because they led to me discovering healing, right? And that there was such a thing as healing. I didn't know before that. And what people don't realize is that the way the soul works and how it communicates with you is not always the big picture. It's not always direct in that way. It might go, you need to go to the singing class. You need to help out, in this cooking class, whatever it is. And from there, you start to, and it doesn't matter what age you are, you start to go, oh my God, I love this. Why do I love this? I love this because my soul is in alignment to this.
Yeah.
That's why I love it.
Yeah.
And that is what the soul wants you to do. It wants you essentially to align with what you came here to do. And you have to love it, right? And the issue that we have is how much depression we have. And to me, depression is lack of love. It's a lack of connection. It's lack of self-knowledge. It's the masking and the pretense of, I need to be normal. I need to be okay. I need to be how you want me to be. I don't like my feelings. I don't know how to deal with them. So let's shut them up.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about that as well is that when we do follow that, they're really like when you put your finger on that thing that said God wants you to do what you want to do. Like, it's basically the real key indicator is like follow your joy, right? Like when you even just spoke about like I wanted to act, I wanted to write, you could see that you were animated about that. And that's how we know when we're speaking from our soul, when we're guided by our soul, is that it feels good. But we haven't been taught to trust that feeling of it feeling good because we're so addicted or so married to, like, in order for anything to be successful or to achieve anything, it's going to be hard, right? It's going to be hard work. So we try and fit ourselves in. And I just think that, I think about the young people, and my daughter's in year 11 and going through that same thing about like the careers, talking with career counselors about what you want to do. It's often hard to know what you want to do when you're in high school. And like you, I wanted to go and study naturopathy. I wanted to be a naturopath. And there was that voice in my head saying, what if this is just a phase? Right? So I should do something that is broader. And I went and studied business instead. Right. But the soul is always giving us opportunities to come back into that alignment, right? Like to course correct. And that's why I always say to people, like, it's not a wrong path because there's always going to be those opportunities to choose again and to come back into alignment. But, I just was reminded of that often the medicine or the key ingredient is like what feels good. Like,
Well, exactly. And I just want to slightly add to that, which is, you mentioned the word hard, and it's like, okay, so what would you want to do? And even if it was hard, you'd still want to do it.
yeah,
Do you see what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
I think people go, oh, it's going to be hard, but it's like, it could be hard at times, but you still want to do it, as opposed to doing something you don't want to do, which will be hard all the time.
yeah.
It might be easy to do physically, but emotionally it's going to, and energetically it's going to drain you, and it's going to be hard in that way. So the question is more like, okay, how do I adjust and grow and be okay if certain things are hard? Because some things will be. And I feel like if people could embrace this, that there are going to be times where you're confused and you don't know, and there's times to change and there's times of struggle. And it's like, I remember when COVID hit, right? And I actually moved to Queensland just before COVID hit. I hardly knew anybody here. And my at the time I realized that my husband and I were not on the same path and we broke up. So I was in a situation where I'm in a city where I don't know anyone. My family were all back in Melbourne. My friends were in Sydney or in Cairns or wherever, but not in Brisbane. And I was like, wow, what do I do? And now I can't travel and teach. And I have my daughter and my son who are also struggling with, with the breakup and with, and with what's going on and with school and with just finding themselves. And I remember thinking, oh my God, wow, what is the opportunity? What am I meant to learn here? What is the doorway that's meant to open here? And it was really interesting that prior to that, I thought about teaching online countless times. And every time I thought about it, I was like, no, it's a no for me. I don't want to do it. And when this occurred, it was like, hey, well, either you keep saying no, or maybe this is the time to say yes. And you have to change how you do everything. But why don't you find a way that this works? And maybe it'll be way you'll like, you know, and maybe even if you don't like it, you can figure out how to like it. Right. And so it was really challenging. And I had to, like, again, I had to get a coach who would help me to navigate my own way of thinking and seeing this way of teaching. And I was like, I feel like a child. I've already taught. By that stage, I taught for many, many years, but I always taught live. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take this as a challenge. Right. And there were times where it was really frustrating, and it was difficult, and it opened my eyes to a new world, a completely different world, a completely different way of doing things. But throughout that time, internally, I was like, okay, it's challenging, but it's exciting because it's still allowing me an opportunity to do what I love, which
Mm.
is to teach, whilst I'm navigating my life and how to be the best single mother that I can be during this really, challenging time in so many ways.
Mm. Yeah, it's the opportunity. And I think the difference is when it's something that is challenging and hard, which it can be in your business or pivoting in your business or going to to a whole new level. But when you're guided by your soul, when you just know that it's on purpose, then there is that knowing that guides you forward. So it doesn't feel like that exhausting hard. It's like I want to do this because there's a deeper calling behind it that I'm answering and that I'm following. And I think that that's really beautiful. Um, I really loved this conversation. It's great, and I love the way that you bring the body into it. And I teach embodiment as well, and I just think that what's possible when we really bring our body online into this human experience. Like, we have a body for a reason. And I think that this conversation has just opened up a further doorway for people to really utilize that. Is there anything that you want to share, any last minute thoughts or comments? And certainly, please also share how people can reach out and connect with your work as well.
I think at the end of the day, when you take a step forward, you're going to feel a little nervous. I think you should embrace that, right? That is completely normal. Nobody feels super confident doing something new and something different. And I think it's an opportunity for people to get to know themselves, especially when you go from a position of working for someone else to working for yourself and navigating your life and business. But I also, again, want to emphasize the fact that we, our soul's purpose is not just a job description. A soul's purpose is everything in our lives, in particular our relationships. So I realized at one point in my life when I was at the pinnacle, maybe of, or I thought so at the time, of being super successful, and I was traveling nonstop. I, was making really good money. I had a lot of people that were interested in my work. New doors were opening for me to travel and teach in different countries constantly. And there was also this realization that my children were at this very important time period and age where they needed a mom to be there consistently. And I remember thinking to myself, I have to make a decision. Like, I have to make a choice. And whatever I do is going to make a huge difference to my own life and to my children. And it became very, very clear to me that I had to choose to be a mom first during that time. And I have to say, I have zero regrets, like literally zero regrets in choosing that, as opposed to choosing to push and be on the Oprah shows and all of those, which I could have been on.
Mm.
And it was like, no, I'm not going to do that because I actually don't have the right foundation for it. And I really want to be the best mom that I can be for these, two souls that came into my life. And I say this because very often being a mother or a father is not valued in this
Mm.
society. And we kind of go, you sucked, you failed, right? You didn't succeed the way that you wanted to. And it's like, no, I'm really, really happy and fulfilled in my life that I did that, because I see my children and who they've become
Mm.
because I made that choice. And so I really want people to realize that the soul speaks the language of cycles as well. And it might say to you, in this cycle, it's not about your job. It's not about your career. It's not about people knowing you. It's about you becoming the best version of yourself, or it's about you becoming the best parent, or whatever it is. We need to slow down and realize that the soul doesn't just want you to become, super successful, make a lot of money, because it actually doesn't care that much about it, because you can't take that with you into the spiritual world. So it's very, very important for us to look at all the aspects of our life and all the stages that we are going through. And for those who are interested in understanding more of what I do, I just encourage you to go to my website, which is innasegal.com. It's INNASEGAL.com. And I often do free masterclasses, or, very reasonably priced ones where you can just take steps towards your own journey of healing and transformation. And I have these on so many different topics, from the journey of your soul and understanding, what your soul really desires, and how to cleanse and transform and work through what's holding you back. And we didn't get to really touch on the feminine and the masculine, where as you embrace those parts of yourself, you become so much more clear and focused, and at the same time flowing and creative and alive in terms of where you need to go in your life and what your needs really are. And I also talk a lot about healing and ancestry and working on your inner child. So essentially the best thing to do is to go to my website, look at master classes, or join our mailing list. And and you'll be given lots of different tools to begin your journey, or to continue your journey, or to deepen your journey.
And it's so great that, that we have access to these beautiful tools and your books as well. So I'll put all of these details in the show notes for anyone that's interested. Just click into the show notes and you'll be able to get that information. Thank you so much for being here. I've loved this conversation, and thank you for just showing up and sharing your wisdom, because it's so important. And I think anything that brings us back into understanding ourselves and our inner authority, and taking back our power, because we've got access to everything that we need here, right? And then then we're guided from that place to do what we need to do. But this is home base first. So such beautiful reminders. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.